You guys watching this game? This guy's been down for a long time.
What's up, Crash It Nation? This is Jonathan Wood. This is episode number 30 on the Crash It podcast. Today on the podcast, we're going to feature none other than Peyton Keathly. And we're going to talk about, I hope everybody had a good Christmas and a happy New Year. With the new year, always brings in some new information, some new derbies, and also some new rules. This year, we just had the Cornhusker Chaos. It was by Reckless Promotions over this weekend. And, man, I just want to touch on that for just a minute. It was an awesome show right out of the gate for the Cornhusker Chaos. It's in Nebraska. And, man, there was some awesome derbies. I don't know if it was the building but the acoustics in the building, the engines just seemed like they never shut down the whole time. But congrats to the old school feature winners of Scott Bergmark, Alex Engelberg, Jared Mertens, the duo bone stock drivers, Matt Rosno and Craig Johnson. Man, that's all. It was really cool. They had like a couple of the duo bone stock drivers. Like, I think it was like a gut and go mixed with one person running the gas, one person running the steering. And that was really cool to see. But in the trucks, Nick Bladlow and Justin Bladlow brought home the win. Janelle Ness and Lane Wolf bringing home the Mad Dog. In the limited weld teams, the first place growers not showers bringing home the win. Dylan Corona and Casey Coranda. Team Busch Light coming in second with Jared Smith and Jeff Court. Junkman bringing home top three with Andrew Lewis and Jacob Schuster. They also were the Mad Dog team. But, man, that was an awesome derby. Kind of reminded me of a little bit of like Blizzard Bashness, the way they had it set up. It was like one-on-one for the teams the first night, and that was on New Year's Eve. And then on New Year's Day, they rounded up the features. So really hard-hitting action, and I'm sure that everybody was there. They really they just put on an awesome show. So
Yeah, it was
to the winners.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to watch. We were watching it over at Nichols at his New Year's party, and there was some interesting builds. I think the guy in the checker cab, the old checker cab, you don't ever see those anymore, but his team ended up winning, if I seen correctly. But there was a compact heat. I think it was just individual drivers as well. They got after it as well. It was cool to see a wide variety of builds. We talked about the checkered cab. There was also like a Plymouth Fury and a couple of GM wagons. And there in the compact class, there's Cavaliers and Camrys and the Accords and Luminas, of course. But it was cool to watch.
It was awesome to watch, and man, they just had the limited world singles. I forgot to mention Nathan Fowler just brought it home. Mad Dog and the win. Very awesome to see, though. But the next couple shows coming up, we got the Rebel Run Indoor Derby. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but they have a bump and run, a figure eight, and a demolition derby. It's $2,000 to win in Sturgis, Kentucky on January 27th. I'm kind of looking forward to that. We might see some Lucky 7 drivers venture up and put on a show from that. But it's an indoor derby, and I kind of reviewed the rules, and they're kind of similar to what we see here in mid-Missouri. So we may get to see someone out there that drives for the Lucky 7 show. Also, we've got the 2023 Redneck Rumble in January 28th. Capital City Carnage in March 3rd and 4th. That's one we're looking forward to. A lot of guys from Central Missouri heading out there. It's going to be a really fun show to watch. I'll probably be there. I know Jacob's got a spot, and I think, several of the drivers that run the Lucky Sevens Point Series, they're going to be out there putting on a show and trying to bring home the money for Central Missouri. It's always a good time to get out there. And Kurt, every time I show up, he says, "You recording?" And what'll happen is Kurt gets out there and man, he just goes and puts on a show. Once he finds out I'm recording, he just gives me the sign like, "Watch this." And but then Whiskey City Revolutions, March 18th to 19th, Wicked Team shows in same weekend there in March, 18th and 19th, and then Hot Springs Havocs in Arkansas. And then that brings us to Spring Explosion, which I know some of the other guys from around here are running that as well. But those are some shows that are just, if you're listening, that be looking out for. They're also always awesome shows to watch. And that kind of brings us right into when our season starts here, Lucky Sevens. And man, can't wait for all them shows.
Yeah, I know I think around half of that compact class that bone stock doesn't go up in Carnage will be from our area. It seems like we're bringing, I think there'll be a lot of cars around
11.
Central Missouri. And then, then all the full-size drivers are running Spring Explosion, it seems like, the local guys. So those two shows will be fun to watch. I'm interested to see how our drivers fare against, different areas.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to watch all that. But right after, so with
Jacob's going back to back. He's trying to go back to back up there.
He's gonna try. It's probably what he's doing right now. He's probably working on his Carnage car.
Yeah, I think he's polishing like his trophy case to where the new one's gonna go.
So with the new year, Lucky Sevens Promotions, that's they brought out some rules, and this portion of our podcast is going to be sponsored by Lucky Sevens Promotions. This is going to be our Lucky Sevens promotion segment, and we're going to get right into that sponsorship video, and we'll hear about the rule changes right after this.
Lucky Sevens Promotions is a premier motorsport promotion company specializing in demolition derby and
Forgot to hit it that way. Never mind.
Lucky Sevens Promotions is a premier motorsport promotion company specializing in demolition derby and figure 8 racing. We've got over 20 years of motorsport entertainment under our belts. We are a driver's first organization. We strive to put on the most competitive, fair, and fun experience for drivers while still providing a fun and engaging experience for our fans. If you are interested in bringing motorsport entertainment to your event venue, please contact Lucky Sevens Promotions. We will be thrilled to discuss various entertainment options we can provide. Check us out on Facebook and LuckySevensPromotions.com. Lucky Sevens is always willing to add to our array of sponsorship partners. If you are in any way interested in becoming an advertising partner, do not hesitate to contact our staff. We would be happy to assist you in creating an excellent marketing venture for your company. We have a vast portfolio of sponsorship packages to fit any budget. So if you're looking for a fun, family-filled activity, check out Lucky Sevens Promotion. It's a show that you will not want to miss. 2022 was a smashing success. We ask that you join us in making 2023 even bigger and better. See everybody in 2023.
Yeah, so Dirty 30 race in Topeka, Kansas is when Capital City Cartage is. It's in Topeka, Kansas. and that's going to be on March 3rd and 4th. We had a comment on our Facebook Live or our YouTube live stream, so I figured I'd answer that for him. Also, while we're getting into some rule changes, it looks like you guys raised the height of the doors. Is that something new this year? Last year, I think we seen a lot of low skin doors, and people said, man, it makes it easier for me to climb in my car. But here at Lucky Sevens, I know they're going to mention this, but it's very important for driver safety. And man, I know I was gritting my teeth on some of them intersection shots. Like, man, it don't take much for a bumper to break someone's arm. And I think that probably is what motivated that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's even less about the intersection shots, because usually that's with your front bumper. But I know, especially even with the figure eight cars, those ass ends take a lot of beating, and then the rear ends go up. So a lot of times going around the corners, they're sliding into those corners. Me and Jacob both felt like, man, all it takes is one back bumper to go in, over that top of that door and get somebody's arm, and then somebody's out of work for weeks, and that's never anything that we want, and anything we could do to prevent that is always going to be a priority. I know it sucks for the guys, for the bigger guys that in these little cars, but it's for their safety. So I don't know, Slim Fast is on sale. I haven't seen a lot of commercials, so slim up. I don't know. But yeah, we also so the figure eight, there's not a lot of changes. We wanted to keep it. I feel like we're in a good competitive place with the rules. So we added the radiator guard. A lot of guys are already doing it, and it doesn't really do anything structurally to the car. It just keeps mud out of the radiator, or just keeps the little stupid stuff from ruining a radiator. And I know those get harder to find and more expensive the longer we do this. So just trying to keep it cheaper on guys' equipment. And everyone hates seeing hot cars run. So any chance we get to make cars run better, longer, that's a pro for the fans as well. So the figure eight was pretty much the same. The bump and run, there's no changes. So the class with the most changes, I think, is the full size, the full size stock class.
Before you get into that, Joshua, I've got a question. You mentioned the bump and run. So one person reached out to me and asked if we could. So can they run like same tires they're running on the figure eight, like the non-bone stock cars? They can run any kind of tire in the bump and run as well, or like a V tread and the bump and run? Is that something that
correct? Yeah, bump and run still any tire wheel combination is allowed, but for the hobo figure eight, it will just be street tires only. I don't want to see any V treads or mud tires out there, or anything with real aggressive. I think the most aggressive we're going to allow is like the snow DOT tires, like the Winter Forces. Will probably be the most aggressive that's allowed in that. So that was a big change there as well.
Sorry to get you off track there. Just had a question come in. I wanted to go ahead and knock it out while I had it.
No, that makes good sense. So yeah, the biggest class change is for the full size stock, and honestly, it's not even so. Any of the classes, anything you ran last year should still be able to get in, as long as they follow the low doors. All you gotta do is add a piece of 2x2 or maybe something bigger on that. So the car itself, for all of our classes, you're likely going to be able to run it again. We didn't take a lot away, but for the full size stock, we did allow the aftermarket motor mounts. I know there's a lot of guys, even some local guys that wanted those. It just helps keep the motor, the motor and cradle or the motor and tranny protected. You're not breaking mounts loose and then having your $250 headers slinging around your engine bay. The reason why it was wrote off last year is because we were worried about people tying, pressurizing these full size cars. But with the we made a change with the aftermarket. If you run the aftermarket motor mounts, you got to leave your transmission free from the cross member. Yeah. So you got to leave your transmission free from the cross member. So that takes out the ability to pressurize these cars with the lower cradles. And
yeah, that makes total sense on that. And I was kind of talking to somebody, and I was hoping Jacob would come on because this came up during our conversation, and this came from a guy that was, I believe he's out of Kansas, and he said, I just want to get your thoughts on something. And I said, I'm just going to run it by you guys and see what you guys kind of think of it. So he mentioned to me, he said, so I was at a derby. It wasn't one of our shows, but he said I was at a derby and the guy's car stalled out, and he's coming across it. And there was a guy that was coming across the track for him, and he waved him off, just waved him off like he was going to break his stick. And he said, man, the guy pulled off of him, and the other guy that was going to get hit didn't break his stick. And he said, so what happened is actually later on in the derby, this same guy waved off someone else again, and they just hit him anyway. And he reached up and broke the stick, and it turned out he was hurt. And I said, well, I think it's like a driver etiquette type thing. Is if you wave off someone, that's you telling them like, I'm done, don't hit me, something could be wrong. But is that something that you may present like, oh, if we see you like totally wave someone off, like I'm done, that's clearly coming across the track to put a really good shot on you? Is that something you would ever break someone off for, or is that just a head game type thing?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever break anyone off for that. But as a driver, I know that there is, kind of like the unwritten rules of baseball for the baseball fans, but there are just those you don't have to say the rules, but they're in there. So yeah, it's a driver etiquette thing. And if it's me, someone waves me off, I'm not going to hit them. But if I see that car that waved me off continuing to move and make contact, it would be my goal at that point to, okay, so your stick doesn't matter. So at that point, you're fair game, stick or no stick. And that's just my opinion. But if you got the goal and just the disrespect to this sport to wave someone off and then continue to go and try and compete, then that's on that driver. And I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it's like if you wave me off coming across the track, there's something wrong with you and you're going to break off. But if you don't, you're opening yourself up to a lot more scrutiny in the long run, I think, because people in this sport do not forget. They don't forget. So it might not even be at that same derby. It could be down the road, and here we are again. You didn't break off last time, so I'm gonna feed it to you this time. And yeah, that's just something that came up. So I thought I'd ask you why we were talking kind of about rules. That's kind of an unwritten rule, but it's just something that came up.
That might be one of those the boy who cried wolf scenarios. You're faking hurt, and then maybe one time you're actually hurt, but that guy remembered from the previous show that you faked it. He's gonna feed you a bumper, and it could hurt you more. That's a slippery slope, I think. Just don't hopefully the drivers just don't do that. It's
Yep. So in the gut and go, the only thing I think you guys changed to no full frame SUVs this year.
Yep. No full frame SUVs, and then I hate doing 9-wire and chain. So we just, we're allowing a bolt in that place, no added metal, but you can add a bolt instead of 9-wire or chain, just a 3/8 bolt.
Right.
And then
And a big one in compacts. Big one, I think, may draw some interest to any of the compact guys that are listening to this. It looks like you guys are going to allow cradles this year. So I know there's a lot of guys that ran Blizzard Bash, around this area that might pique some interest that you can run your cradle car. And hopefully that brings some new competitors to this area, or, we didn't get much compacts last year. So
yeah, this is the class that there's a debate on even having at our shows, and this is kind of a last ditch effort to try and save that compact weld class. I mean, it's my favorite to watch. I know anytime they're on the track, they're putting on a show, but car counts have just been down the last few years, especially at our local shows. And I know that we boosted those car counts when we were running, and now we're not, so we're seeing less cars there. But I hope guys will come out, and the non-cradle guys won't be scared of the cradle cars. They really don't do that much more, but cradle's not a requirement to run that class. But yeah, I'm excited to see car counts for the compacts.
all right, I think that covers any of the rule changes that they've made this year. And if you guys have any questions on rules, you can reach out to Joshua or Jacob Wood. You can find them on Lucky Sevens Promotions Facebook page. You can go to lucky7promotions.com, find their contact information. Reach out to them guys. They might direct you to someone else that might be helping them with tech or anything like that. But I think they'll be willing to answer any questions you guys have. Always talk to them.
Oh yeah, we've been fielding multiple calls already. I know it's pretty cool just to see, different drivers are pushing different areas, all like in December, pushing January. So it's cool that they're already in the laboratory, making modifications or trying to change things with their builds from last year. Just there's some new drivers that have been calling and that are just interested in running our shows, and that's fun to see. So it gets me excited for 2023. That's for sure.
Man, while we talk about that real quick before we move on, yeah, it's awesome. I got a Snapchat, and I got Snapchats with most of the drivers that ran last year, and it's so cool to see, all these drivers that are working on their builds for next year. We're going to have a lot of fresh builds come out, and I just can't wait to see them all. But they've been wrenching on these things for the last couple months, and they're waiting. They get to a stopping point, and they're like, when's the rules coming out? And I'm like, they're going to release them soon. Trust me. Well, now you got them. And ever since the rules dropped on Christmas, holy smokes, talk about the welding wire has been burning. These guys are going to work. And it's not just the guys or the girls, it's the kids, man. These kids are already working on their cars. And that's just what gets me pumped up. I love seeing all the, this is dedication is what it is. And these guys are putting in their effort right now. This is where it counts. And I'm just so excited for the 2023 season to get underway. But man, I can't wait. But, we're going to get to Peyton Keathley. He's an up and coming driver. He's a driver. He's a rider. He's one energetic son of a gun, and he's an ambassador for the sport. But before we get into Peyton, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
I actually have one thing to add. Whenever you're talking about the youth classes, I had a driver ask me, "Hey, where's the youth rules at? Where do we find the youth rules?" So any youth class we have will just follow the grown-up rules. So if we have a youth derby again, that's a gut and go, it'll just be the gut and go rules. But for the youth bump and run, or the circle track that we have before the figure eights, those follow the bump and run rules. So the big thing is, if you're going to put a kid in a card, please build a cage for the youth. And we're not going to say anything on an overbuild of a cage for a youth car in any class. So build those driver compartments up for that class.
We're gonna get a sponsor. Ray's Lawn and Landscaping. We offer affordable full lawn care services with landscaping, from simple mowing to designing your dream lawn. Let us do the work so you can enjoy your time during the spring, summer, and fall months. When it's cold and snowy outside, give us a call for all your snow removal services to help keep your family or your customers safe. Don't break your back or your bank. Residential or commercial property, give us a call. We are fully insured for your safety and ours. Ray's Lawn and Landscaping is located in Eldon, Missouri. Give us a call, like us on Facebook. From the driveway to the flower beds, the grass in between. At Ray's Lawn and Landscaping, we have the experience, the staff, and the equipment to get the job done right the first time. For your next project or facelift to your property, give Ray's Lawn and Landscaping a call today. We're back, and we've got Peyton Keathley with us. Peyton, thank you for joining us on the Crashed It podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Peyton, right off the bat, I'm going to shoot one out of the cannon for you. So we're all sitting around the table one day. It was a Sunday afternoon, and man, we were sitting there at Mom and Dad's house. It was Jacob, Joshua, and I. We were playing cards or something, and dude sends us a Snapchat. And guess who it is? It's Peyton. Full OMM hoodie like you're wearing right now. For the ones that are watching on YouTube live right now, he's wearing OMM apparel. To see it even at a Chiefs game, and I just thought that was awesome. So, did anyone ask you about Demolition Derby or what the hoodie was about whenever you were at the game?
Well, while we were at the game, there was a couple of kids that I caught out of the corner of my eye while we were going to our seats. And I just sat there and was thinking to myself, they're probably wondering what the heck OMM was, but nobody really said anything and all of that. But that was actually my first Chiefs game and NFL game that I've actually ever been to. And it was a blast.
So let's take a step back real quick. Can you kind of tell everybody how you got started in the sport of Demolition Derby or figure eight or anything that you've done Derby related? Kind of tell us where that passion came from.
So whenever I first moved to Ashland, there was a Derby at the Boone County Fair up in Sturgeon. And I sat there and I watched the whole show. The guys up there were laying it on. And I sat there and told myself, I want to do that one day. And back in 2020, my fiance's brother had a van just laying around his backyard. And I looked at him and I was like, hey, is there anybody running that van that you know of? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, do you care if I run it? He was like, yeah, it's an old beater, but you can run it if you want to. I just want it back for scrap. So I sat there and threw a couple of grater blades on it because I didn't really have the money to go out and buy a cage and all that material to build a cage. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to throw grater blades on it.
So what kind of van was it?
Oh, it was a Ford Mercury. One of the
Ford
older
Mercury.
Yep.
Again. So Did you run the gut go class with it then? What class would you be going in that one?
That show was a JMB show, and it was actually my first show that I ever ran, and it was in California. And there was, I think, 34 cars out on the track at one time. Going into it, just going into it was something that I never thought I was actually going to go into, with 34 other cars out on the track with me. But we drove it down to a 5th place finish that show with my first one ever.
Heck yeah.
Was there any other competitors that stood out that like maybe fostered like a rivalry between you and him that you want to tell us about?
So that show, it was probably within the first minute and a half, everything was going good, and I was trying to just play my shot smart. And me, Derek, Kyle, and Brandon, with us all being related, we were sitting there just making sure we had each other's backs. And somehow Kurt Turpin and I always meet head on in a derby track. I don't know where it comes from. Just Kurt and I always go head on with each other. And as soon as Kurt and I went head on, Justin Quincy comes flying out of the middle of nowhere, full track, and just head on. And ever since then, just that one hit just made me fall in love with the sport more and more.
So you've experienced the gladiator's punishment.
Yes.
So if you ever see him on the track again, are you gonna try and give it back to him, or
we'll play the shot right? But if I have a shot, I'm gonna just take the shot and full send it.
You heard it here, Justin Quincy. If you're ever on the track with Peyton Keathly, better watch out. Gladiator's gonna get gladiated, baby.
Oh. So think about that first time you strapped into the car or your van before you're pulling on the track. Did anyone give you any kind of advice, or did anyone, give you any kind of words of wisdom before you pull on the track?
I had a buddy that was at that show, and I told him I was going to run, and I went and put the helmet on, and I was getting ready, and I had that instant regret. I was like, what the hell did I get myself into? And I knew as soon as I signed up, I knew there was going to be a lot of cars out there at one time. And I will remember this probably till I die. My buddy said, you back out of this, I'm going to punch you square in the nose. And I went out there, and I had that instant thought of, as soon as I saw all the cars circling around the track, I just had that thought of, shit, there is a lot more cars out here than what I thought there was going to be.
Heck yeah. So leading up to the Derby, say your first show ever, any kind of build you've had, was there one thing that you might have had to overcome that just stuck out in your head, like some kind of through the build process that hung you up, or anything that for anyone listening that might be getting ready to build their first van or car, something that you had to overcome to get to the track?
Just making sure everything's put where you want it, and just making sure everything's finalized the way that you would want it to be. Like, I know Derek helped me a lot with the first one, but ever since then, like, YouTube University is what I call it. That's kind of been one of my go-tos when it comes to how to do something on my own. I'll go on YouTube and I'll look up like how to wire the battery terminals the right way, or how to, like, I can't weld for crap. So I know Brian Nichols said that if I ever needed any help welding, to just get a hold of him and he'll help weld for me. So I'd say just making sure like everything's the way you want it, and not even double checking, triple checking, making sure that everything's finalized.
Yeah, it's important to double check or triple check. Make sure that your fluids are full before you go out. man, I can't tell you how many guys that just start, they'll forget like a wiring, like some of the cars that you see out in the figure eight, you'll see them die on the first hit. You're like, fuel safety shut off switch. And it's just the little things sometimes that matter. And that's important advice. Double check, triple check everything
Yeah,
before you go out there.
And kind of like going off of that, I was actually out at Dustin Jordan's one day, and we were getting ready to, where were we going? It was right before Blizzard Bash, and I know it was one of the last shows of the year, and I was going to take a Ford Focus hatchback wagon down to Versailles to run in the gut and go. Everything was stripped out, vacuumed out, everything was ready to go. But every time we'd sit there and try and turn the car on, it wouldn't start. Dustin and I went through every known little thing to try and figure out why this car wouldn't start. And finally, we gave up on it. And then while we were all at Blizzard Bash and talking and all of that, and I sat there and I told Dustin, what about the Ford shutoff switch in the back of those Fords? Because I've come to find out those are what have always seemed to stop me. I can't figure out where they're at.
Come on, Peyton. That's what YouTube University's for.
Well, Dustin still has the car, and he said if I ever wanted to run it again, just give him a holler.
How many derbies have you drove in?
I think 5 so far.
Yeah, and how many derbies are you planning on running in again? Because I hear that you're hanging it up. You're retiring after 5 shows. Want to go fish or some shit?
Well, so 2023, I know I've got a car that is free and that I can run if I want to, but we're expecting a baby in June, so this year I might just take this year as a year to focus on the baby and be there for the baby and whatnot. But 2024, there's going to be some good things coming.
Always got to focus on those kids first, man.
Yep. And with it being my first one, I want to make sure I'm there through all the good stuff.
You better make sure you're there for the bad stuff too.
I'll be there for
Your
the
wife will
good, bad, and
notice.
ugly.
Yeah, he's just leaving that for the wife. I'll be there for the good times.
I gotta go fish. So you're like a professional fisherman.
Yeah, he's even got a YouTube channel.
You're like
Fishing
sponsoring stuff,
101
right?
with Peyton Keathly.
So is that competitive nature in fishing? Does that translate to the derby track, or is it like a different competition feel? I mean, I know when you're competing, but how does that translate across
Fishing.
sports?
So between fishing and derbying, there's a whole lot more competitors. The last major tournament that I fished, there was almost 300 boats in it. And when there's 300 other guys out on the lake competing for the same prize that you are, it takes a lot of focus and a lot of mentalness to just sit there and fight through all the hard and just sit there and try and focus through all the negative and the thoughts running through your head like, do I have enough weight in the box to sit there and win this sucker?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, do I have enough weight to put in this fish to win this sucker?
So do you ever you're cruising down a lake or stream or whatever the fuck you're fishing, you see another boat, like, all right, I'm a derby car driver now. I'm gonna T-bone you or something. Take them out the hard way, baby. Let's go.
So normally when we're fishing, since I don't have a boat yet, so in the tournaments that I fish, there's a boater and a co-angler. So the boaters will go up and compete against all the boaters, and then all the co-anglers will compete against all the co-anglers. So all in all, there's technically 600 people in one tournament, and you're competing for 2 different prizes. But normally I just sit back in in the passenger seat, and I let the boater go wherever the heck he wants to go. I'm not questioning him.
One more thing about fishing before we get the fuck off fishing topic, because this is a derby podcast, first of all. But one more thing. So when you're fishing, how much are you fishing for? Like, what's the prize on one of them things?
So, the BFLs right now, I know first place is either 10,000 cash or a brand new boat.
That's what you're fishing for?
Yeah.
Well, heck yeah. That's pretty good then.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right. So when you've drove in 5 derbies,
Yep.
you know, and so before we get in, whenever you've driven, have you ever had anything come out on the track that maybe you said, man, that's a rookie mistake, or anything that you've did on the track that you've regretted?
Oh yeah. Versailles, 2021 in Versailles. So my buddy Wyatt Hobbs gave me a Honda Accord that he ran in California, and he said everything was good on it, just ready to go. Well, I didn't think that he had already ran his car and that it caught fire in California. So we pull up to go load the car up, and I was missing 2 of my tires that were originally on the car. So I had to scramble around trying to find tires laying around my brother's house that would fit the car. And finally, we managed to find the tires that were supposed to go on the car, threw those back on, and loaded the car up on the trailer and hauled ass. When I mean barely made it, I probably made it within 5 minutes before tech was over. And pulling out on the track, I vividly remember that the car started smoking on me, and I didn't even run, and I didn't really do a thorough walkthrough to make sure everything was good to go. Pulled out on the track and made one hit, and then the car overheated on me.
So what happened?
Well, there was no radiator in the car.
Oh, you should have took some of Peyton Keathly's advice and did a double check or a triple check on the walkthrough beforehand.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Let's walk this back. You went this whole time and you forgot your radiator. That's kind of a big piece to forget about there, Peyton.
Yeah. Yeah,
You live, you learn, I guess.
Yeah, you live, learn, and you do a lot of stupid shit in this sport, but you always find a way to overcome it and try and do better with it.
So did you just loop the lines for the feature, or what was the plan after you figured it out?
So after we ran that car and I made, I think, 1 or 2 hits with it before it finally died, after that show was over was when I proposed out on the track down at Versailles that year. So the next show I ran was Russellville, and we were all working on it. I know Garrett Ferguson was helping me out in the pits, because I went over and I asked them if they could help me figure out how to loop the lines and whatnot, because I was still trying to learn and figure all of that out. So I went over and I was asking Garrett, and Garrett helped me and got enough water in it where it was staying cool for the most part, and then got out there and everything went good. And I made sure that I was one of the last ones out there. And every time we were in line pulling out onto the track, when I was stopped, I made sure I turned the car off so it wouldn't get too hot.
Awesome. So over the 5 years, what was your favorite derby experience? What's that one memory that sticks out? You're like, man, that was awesome.
Oh boy. Probably when in Versailles, when after the gut and go was over and I proposed out on the track.
What
How'd that go down?
I'm curious about this. What's your plan if she says no?
Well, that was going through my head the whole time, but I knew deep down it was go for it, shoot the shot. And I took that shot in Versailles back in 2021, and it was a good one.
So when you forgot the radiator, man, I got the ring. Maybe I should remember the radiator.
Well, at least you didn't forget the
that
ring.
makes sense. You probably had a lot of things going through your mind when you were loading the car up and
Yeah,
getting ready to change your lives around.
Yeah, there was a lot going through my head that day, and just my mind was going 1,000 different directions, and I was having to scramble to make sure batteries were charged and make sure tires were put back on the car. And as soon as we pulled up to the track, actually, Gary Jones was teching my car while it was still on the trailer. So I got there just in the nick of time, and Gary sat there and looked at me and was like, "Is this the same car that was out of my house?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're good to go. I know what's done to this car. It's good to go."
The good old tech, baby. I
Yeah.
love the good to go ones.
Yeah.
So is Versailles your favorite track then because of the sentimental value, or do you have a favorite track to drive on other than Versailles? Or
I'd have to say Versailles holds a special place in my heart just because of that night, but I'd have to say California is my favorite track because I've had the most success there.
so over this summer, you got to ride in a figure eight car too.
Yep.
Kind of walk us through that experience.
So
Who'd you ride with?
Dylan White. So
And before you get going, Dylan, he's kind of, man, he's known to just let anyone hop in his car. Was there like a precursor to any conversations before that, or did you just walk up to him and be like, "Dude, can I ride with you?"
So there was a couple of, I know there was a show in Russellville and he and I were talking and whatnot. And I asked him if I could possibly hop in a time or two with them and ride with them. And he was like, "Sure, I don't care." So I sat there and I messaged him on Facebook and I was like, "Hey, do you care if I ride with you in Sedalia?" Because we were going to go down there and watch anyway because Kyle was running. And he was like, "Sure." So I had the helmets I had my helmet in the truck, and as soon as we got down there, everything was going good until I brought up the one conversation that I will always remember that probably jinxed me in Demolition Derby. I asked him, "How many times have you ever rolled a car?" He was like, "I don't know. I think 4 or 5 maybe." I was like, "Okay." Still wanted to hop in. I know we drew heat 1 and I think heat 4, and we won heat 1, so that sent us straight to the feature. And feature comes around, everything was going good until we come down to the checkered flag and we go up and over I think it was Dylan Bronner's rear end. And the only thing that was going through my head, because I was holding on to the outside of the car, to like the roof of the car. And I remembered when Adam Clancy rolled in Russellville and he had his hand out, and Dylan we got up on 2 wheels, and I finally said, "Screw it, I'm letting go." And as soon as I let go, I just let the car take me wherever it was wanting to go.
Yeah, and I've got an image up on the screen for those that are watching at home of you upside down, and I'm guessing that's what you're talking about.
Yep.
Is this ride with Dylan and Van? So was that the fastest you've
your
ever?
ass? Is that your ass hanging out the passenger window there?
That would be Dylan, actually. So when we rolled, I don't know what happened, but so the passenger side went up and over, and I guess I rolled completely over top of Dylan and was wedged up under the steering wheel whenever Kyle and Nichols came running over to make sure we were all right. And then the next week in the next show in California, Brian came up to me and was like, "Were you driving Dylan's car in the feature?" I was like, "No, why?" He's like, "I pulled you out of the driver's seat, wedged up under the steering wheel."
Yeah. That looks like a
That's
wild
crazy.
ride.
Oh, everybody says, "Are they really going that fast out there?" And my father-in-law looked at me after that show and was like, "Is it really as fast as it looks being inside the car?" Absolutely. Those guys out there, they put it out all on the line for sure. And it's fun. It's an
Yeah, it's
adrenaline rush
actually,
like you've never felt before.
it happens faster in the car for me. Like,
Yeah.
well, when I'm driving, I guess I'd lied. It's all slow motion, but because your adrenaline's pumping, but you get out and you're like, holy crap, was I running that fast or was I just in a slow heat? And you're like, no, everyone will tell you, no, you're going that fast. So
Yeah, I know whenever we were coming out of the corners and shooting the gap in the center in the intersection, there was a couple of times we were probably going 45 or 50 miles an hour, and it going that fast on a derby track. People don't think it's that fast, but let me tell you from personal experience, it is that fast.
Yeah, that's what people would say all the time. Like, oh, they're not going that fast when you're watching on video. Then you go watch one in person and it really looks fast. And then you jump in a car and it's like everything is a blur. It's totally those guys are, I mean, 50 mile an hour, you're not joking. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have no windows and you got, headers or a loud motor and you got 5 or 6 of them around you, and you're turning at a whatever that is, 350-degree angle. It's a rush like no other.
Yeah, there was a couple of times I know when I rode in California, I guess around one of the tires, there was a big ass hole that the guys were digging out and just kept on digging and digging, going around the tire. And there was a couple of times when we started sliding, we got up on 2 wheels and I sat there and I was like, please, Lord, do not let us roll again. Because I just had that moment where I just thought of Sedalia and I was like, shit, don't roll again. I don't want to end up on my lid again, but whatever happens, happens.
Peyton, every corner he's riding going through now, he's gonna be going, God, I hope we don't roll it.
No, but I mean, Dylan's a great driver. He drives smart. He's in his own little world. So if you're sitting in the passenger seat trying to point out gaps to shoot, just don't even try telling him those gaps because he's not going to listen. He's going to do whatever Dylan wants to do.
Yeah. I love watching YouTube videos of guys that got them in their car and you'll see their passenger going crazy over there. And I'm like, dude, these drivers are 3 steps ahead of what you just said.
Yep.
When you're running 50 mile an hour, you have to plan out stuff before it even happens. And that's what people don't understand. But these drivers, man, they're top of the line. And that's one thing I liked about this last year is the tracks, man. They just they made them pack fast and they said, we're going to see who can make adjustments on the fly. And we're going to give these guys full control of their cars. And I love hearing Joshua come over the radio and say, dude, we got to slow these guys down. The dang system can't even keep up with these track times. And he's like, this is nuts.
Yeah, there was a few times where, because Dylan's car doesn't have seatbelts in it, and there was a few times where I was sitting there just pushing my feet down in the floorboard as hard as I could, and every time I pushed down, I thought my feet were going to go through the floor. But Yeah, figure eight. There's a real difference between figure eight and a gut and go, and I don't know what it is, but they're both really fun.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. It's like it's two different rushes in a derby and a figure eight. It's almost indescribable. But one thing you said kind of caught my ear. You said no seatbelts. Do you prefer the no seatbelts? This is kind of an internal argument or a discussion point for a lot of drivers. Are you a seatbelt guy, no seatbelt guy, or are you a 4 or 5 point harness guy? What's your preference?
Normally a seatbelt, just a regular seatbelt that's in a car. But if in a figure eight, whatever they have in there is what they have in there.
You're just kind of at the mercy of the car if you're riding then, huh? So if
Yep.
you were to build one though, would you put what kind of seatbelt setup you running?
I'd like to try a 4-point harness at some point, but just for right now, just standard seatbelt.
Well, hell, Jake Timbrook's raffling them off all the time. The last
Yep.
few days on Facebook, I've seen all these harness raffles. Get in
Yeah, I
on
know.
one of them.
Yeah, I'm on one of the groups. I think the Corsica. I don't know how the hell you pronounce it. One of the groups that he's in and that he invited me into, and
Yeah, he's the admin of the Corsica Nation or whatever.
yeah, it's that one.
So, do you have any future endeavors of jumping in the driver's seat of a figure eight car maybe down the line, or is that a heck no?
I've thought about it. I've just got to let my driving style get a little bit better and go from there.
Yeah, there's no substitute for seat time. That's when you learn when you're driving.
Yeah.
But do you have a favorite venue? Like you've been to several derby events. Is there one venue that you like better than all? Like the atmosphere of the derby community or anything like that?
I'd say Blizzard Bash was probably by far my favorite one that I've been to. Being able to hang out with everybody and just the way everybody got together to help support Gannon and that great cause that they all came up with. It really showed like, yeah, we were all having fun and placing bets on the heat races and who would win and whatnot. But granted,
I had a fat stack from that.
Yeah, I had a fat one coming, but I sat there, and as soon as they got on the whole Gannon strong and sitting there trying to help out with Gannon, I went ahead and donated everything that I'd won so far in the betting with you guys. I went ahead and just donated it all.
Yeah, I think that's what we all did. Our pockets got a little lighter at that time, but
Yeah.
that's something that I've always said about the derby community is everybody's out there to put on a show, have a good time, but everybody understands what matters is family and the support of the derby community. It's just something that no one understands until it's you.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of people will tell you that. I know, heck, when Joshua got in a bad wreck a long time ago, and there was all kinds of figure eight drivers that were coming in there and, giving them some time, just give them a little bit of money just to help them through the rough times. And Jacobs had a knee explode on him. And it was just the times like that, when I see people reach out and help like that, it's just crazy. And that's why anytime that any derby family or driver or, any relative or anything, anytime I see something, I try to give to that cause, because you never know when it could be you in that same place. And the outpouring is, no one understands it until it's them. And I think it's just awesome the way people give back and they have your back. Speaking of having your back, do you have any sponsorships or anyone you want to thank for letting you do what you do?
Well, I'd like to thank the fiance for letting me do this crazy shit. She's been there she might not like the idea of me doing it, but anytime I'm out there, she's always cheering big, and I always look up and I see her smiling up in the stands, and she also has that look of, is he going to flip in this one or is he going to come out okay?
So fiance, when's the wedding?
We haven't come up with a date yet, but it'll probably be after the baby gets here.
You know,
Is that gonna
like
be a
July on the Derby track, they got married or they got engaged on the Derby track. Might as well just have the wedding at the Derby.
Are you officiating it?
Jonathan can.
I knew that was coming.
He's the announcer.
Joshua could do it too.
Yeah,
I am.
And I'd also like to thank Ray Creason with the shop in Apache Flats. He's helped me out a lot through. He's helped me with parts when I needed them. And I'd also like to thank Derek, Kyle, and Brandon for all the time that I've spent bugging the crap out of them, asking for their help. And no matter how much I annoy the crap out of them, I know they've always got my back if I needed it.
So I do have a question that kind of jumps back to the beginning. But so as a kid, like growing up through the years, did you ever attend a demolition derby event, or was it just that time right before you ran?
Growing up down in my hometown, there was every year they had the county fair, and there was always a demolition derby down there. And I remember there was a few times growing up where I'd go, and then it kind of slowed down when we all moved and all of that. And then I found out that there was more derbies up here, and I started attending those and went and watched a couple of the JMB shows over in Warrenton, and then ran in California the same year.
And so where are you from anyway, Peyton?
Dexter, Missouri.
Where?
Dexter,
Where's that at?
down in the Boot Heel.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was just trying to find out kind of what, did you have a passion, like your passion, did it start as a kid, or was it something that just grew on you more as you got older?
It grew more and more as I got older, and then just helping Derek whenever he was needing help with his compact car when Bree and I first got together. And first time I met him, we went down to his house and he was working on his compact car for, I think it was Warrenton. And I was just sitting there nitpicking him and asking him questions and asking if he needed help with anything, just trying to learn more about the sport and how to build a car. And then the time when he was using his compact car to push his gut and go up to the carport, and his compact car exploded on him in the backyard. $2,000 down the drain in wiring harnesses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, I sat there and looked back because I started smelling like something was burning. And I looked back and everything up under the hood just burst into flames. And I guess in the process of him pushing the car, his gut and go car with his compact car up to his carport and whatnot, I guess he somehow managed to cut the fuel line, and it got hot over the motor and everything burst up into flames.
Man. All right, it's time for our next segment. In this segment, it's called "A Picture's Worth 1,000 Words," and this is for all the listeners on Spotify. I had Peyton reach out, send me 5 pictures that were sentimental to him, and we're just going to have him talk about, why they're special to him. And I just like to see how people view pictures. I'm kind of going to let him explain what the picture is and kind of why it's special to him. And all right, Peyton. So I've got him one, looks like he's in front of his derby car or some kind of car with him and his fiance.
So that picture was taken at the Versailles show in 2021. That was before it all started raining. That was before I was covered in mud and looked like I had just taken a mud bath. But that was before the show started. We were in the pits. I was somewhat trying to go through a final walkthrough and make sure everything was ready to go and I didn't forget anything.
Do you have a bumper on that car?
There was one there, a little bit of one.
Forgot it too.
I was gonna say, screw the radiator. There's no bumper either.
Well, I know whenever we pulled that same car up to Russellville at the end of the year show, there was a bumper welded onto the front of it. And it wasn't a good job of welding, but Jared Hatch welded a bumper on the front of that car.
All right, we're getting to our next one, and once you see it on your screen, you can kind of talk to us about what it is and why it means something to you.
So this was the compact feature at Blizzard Bash this year. Just being in the atmosphere in that arena with all the OMM crew and just being able to hang out with everybody and everybody give me the warm welcome and make sure that I was having a great time. And for my first Blizzard Bash, I'll be going back with you guys every year now.
That's awesome to watch. And I kind of like looking at these pictures, wondering, like, some of these drivers, you'll see them like pointing at each other and stuff, and just the head games that go on just even before the derby starts. Like, these guys planned out exactly how they're going to start the show, but the drivers are looking over at each other, and maybe they're running with the team next to them or something, and it's just cool to watch and seeing all the fans. The officials up here with the 5 count, it's getting ready to get rowdy quick. So
and it got rowdy. It got rowdy really quick at Blizzard Bash.
Not in that
that's
feature.
Yeah. The
Well,
feature
in the heat race, it got rowdy quick.
The feature, I had anxiety just watching because I watched Josh was looked like his overflow or something was going before the freaking derby even started. And knowing the backstory just to get him out there, man, we spent too long just trying to get a damn radiator in there. So
yeah.
And that was me, though. I was just having anxiety for that. But what about this next one?
So this one was, I'm pretty sure the last Eldon figure 8. It was the first time that I'd actually ever been on Eldon's new track. The track that night was extremely fast and extremely wet. So you had to start sliding a good 50, 60 feet before the tires if you wanted to get a good clean shot going around the tires.
Now look at the white knuckle going on. Holy crap. Peyton's got his head like the freaking top of the window where the windshield would be, and he's just gripping for dear life, it looks like.
Yeah.
He didn't put a handle in there or nothing, huh?
There was nothing in there. It was either I'm holding on to the cage. So I found out, so my left hand's holding on to the roof where the windshield would be, because where the seal would be for a windshield. I found out there's a little spot there where you can at least get 4 fingertips in there. So I latched on as tight as I could grab there. And then on the bottom of the seat is where I grabbed on with my right hand. So it was basically whatever you could find to hold on to, that's where you were holding on at.
And take us through this last picture real quick. So 28K, has that been your number forever?
Yes, that's been my number. The 28 came from so my dad's birthday is March 28th, and I thought to kind of have my dad with me everywhere I go and whatnot. I thought I'd run 28K as my roof number.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Who did the star cutouts in those?
Oh man, who made my sign? Willard Bullard in Russellville made my roof sign for me.
It's pretty cool. And you got it painted like red and
Red and
blue
black.
and black.
Is there a
I'm half
bumper on this
colorblind.
car too?
There
No.
Where's
there
where's
was
the
there
bumper
was a
at?
bumper on this car, but that car got a one and done show out of it. And
Brian
so
Nichols, where you at, man?
do what?
So
Are you
where's
letting Brian Nichols weld all your bumpers on?
Well, the bumper that was on that car was actually the stock bumper. So
Okay. Makes
um,
sense.
So that car was actually a tribute car for my best friend that whenever I moved up here, he and I played baseball together before he died in a car accident. And his birthday was 2 days after the California show. So I thought that I would build a car and paint it orange and purple and put his initials going down the side to have a little bit of him there with me also. And then his parents were also showed up to that show too.
That's pretty special.
Wow.
And that was actually
Yeah,
that night was actually the best show that I've actually been able to put on and actually do somewhat good in. I think that show is the best driving performance that I've got.
Like an old style Cavalier or something? What kind of car is that?
Oh, what was it?
Celebrity, looks like maybe.
It was a Lincoln something.
I just like how you have duct tape holding the doors back together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just kind of like getting into hearing about the pictures because I might look at a picture and see something, but there's always a story behind a picture. And that's why I decided to do the pictures worth 1,000 words. Thanks for sharing about your pictures that you sent us. Before we get you off here and before we close up the episode number 30 on the podcast, we always have a segment where Joshua has some rapid fire questions that he's going to get to. And man, it is freaking storming so bad at my house right now.
Yeah, it just started raining where I'm at.
He's going to get to some rapid fire questions for you. And
Yeah, you ready for this?
Bring it on, Josh.
All right, here we go. Do you have any superstitions?
Not really.
Cool. Not really.
bumpers are not important.
All right. What's your favorite part of the build?
Probably the paint, knowing that everything, all the other hard work's done.
Okay, what do you do for a living?
Lawn and landscaping, and then fishing.
Who's your biggest fan?
My fiance.
Who's your favorite driver?
Kyle, the All-American Wardhausen.
Favorite paint scheme?
Red and black.
Describe your driving style in one word.
Scary.
I like it.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
What's one thing you would change about the sport?
Nothing.
When or where was your best driving performance?
California back in August.
What's the most important part of this sport in your opinion? Like what separates the winners and losers?
Everybody just going out there having fun, smashing cars. Like if you're not having fun, then what are you doing?
You had one piece of advice for a rookie driver. What is it?
Take your time during the build.
Like don't forget a bumper or radiator.
Yeah, make sure you have a bumper and a radiator.
All right. If you could put one driver into the Demolition Derby or Figure Eight Hall of Fame, who's it going to be?
Tony Burkhart up in Minnesota.
That hit on that imp last year.
Yeah, that was, he and I were talking, and I've actually been talking to him, and he might be coming down to run with us a time or two.
Awesome. All right, who's winning the Lucky Sevens Figure Eight championship
Kyle.
next year? You said Kyle
Yep.
Wardenhausen.
Yep.
All right. If you had individual walk-up music, what song's playing when you pull in?
Oh boy. I'd have to say Beer Buddies by Dylan Scott.
Not familiar with that one. If you could build a car and run in a derby or a figure eight, which one you gonna run in?
If I had to pick one or the other, probably the Derby.
Why is that?
I don't know. There's something about either getting hit or making hits. There's something different.
I would ask you fishing or derbying, but we already know the answer to that one, don't we, Mr. Keathley?
Well, they're both in the picture for upcoming years.
All right, that's all I got.
I got one more thing before we get out of here. Every year we try to figure out ways to get more people engaged in Demolition Derby or Figure Eight. And, this year I've sat around and we've played fantasy football every year. And I've talked to a couple web app developers and stuff like that. And it's kind of wondering if people would be interested if we had a fantasy leagues for Demolition Derby or Figure Eight where I could put an app together and you would have fantasy scoring throughout the year and you could get together with your family or friends and, play fantasy Demolition Derby or fantasy Figure Eight every week and maybe have a outcome like that. That's just something I wanted to throw out. I think a platform we could get in further into that. I just wanted to throw that out there, see if there'd be any interest in having any kind of fantasy leagues for Figure Eight or Demolition Derby, because I know it's huge in the sport of football and basketball and baseball. So why not Demolition Derby?
Oh, that'd be sweet. I can see that.
Yeah, and it also gives the guys, I think it'd give a little bit more of just the guys getting together, trying to pick, oh, I'm going to win this one, or no, you're going to win this one. Just having the rivalries, not only on the track, but going through the fantasy league and whatnot, seeing who's the better driver.
Yeah.
Thinking,
shit, he's on my fantasy team. We can't hit him.
Yeah, I can't spit him out. He's on my fantasy team. But seeing someone sprint across the track after the derby or the race, they had nothing to do with the show, but they're sprinting out there high-fiving. I had you in my fantasy this week. Yeah. But,
just like the guy sprinting across the track at Blizzard Bash with the panda head on and nothing but overalls.
that's just something I wanted to throw out there. Reach out to me though. We can put something together. I I just feel like it'd get more fans involved even further on, you know, of off the track stuff. They might pay attention to more of who's showing up to the tracks with what, and you know, they have someone to root for. Even if like you don't have a person that you know that's out on the track, maybe they're on your fantasy team, so we could bring more fans to the sport that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just always throwing out crazy ideas and seeing what bites. Kind of like fishing, but I suck at fishing. So,
Yeah, that'd be
anybody
cool.
have anything else? Any
We've
last
also
words?
thrown around the idea. I know he's an avid golfer. We're all pretty bad, but it'd be pretty cool to have like a Lucky Sevens or a Demolition Derby golf tournament or something like that. I don't know if the courses would like it, but it'd be cool.
It turns into a demolition derby with the golf carts.
No, that's what we're trying to avoid. We're not going to have a demolition derby on the job.
We actually did
Nichols.
that one time. We did that one time, and Brian Nichols broke his tie rod. We had to drive that golf cart all the way back to the clubhouse. He would not
yeah.
get back on it, but Jacob had to drive it. It had both wheels cranked in, and anytime it would touch pavement, it would just squeal. So we had to take it back, broke tie rod and all. We just took it back, dropped it off, and jumped in the cars and left.
They had the wanted posters out for like a year. You see these guys? But, I think that's going to do it for episode number 30 on the Crashed It podcast. Like I always say, go out there and send it, and see you all in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for coming on, Peyton.
Thanks for having me, guys.